Welcome back, pilots. Truckee is closing down for the rest of the season due to the runway being repaved, so I moved my glider to Minden, Nevada. This is where Gordon Betger set his recent 3,000 kilometer distance record. My ambitions for today are not quite as high, but I'm looking forward to doing some more flying here. Minden is much easier to get back to than Truckee, since you don't need to clear any high mountains to get on final glide. That means one can comfortably fly on days with lower thermal heights, like today. The forecast called for clouds to the south, but the cloud bases turned out to be significantly lower than predicted. This made for some uncomfortable flying over the unlandable areas where I'm used to being much higher. However, this turned out to be a good exercise for me. It isn't necessary to always fly with thousands of feet of margin, and I've been wanting to break myself of the psychological need to be so high all the time. Such a mindset can be very limiting. It slows you down and limits where and how far you're willing to go. If you're just starting out in cross-country soaring, staying high is a good habit to have. But if you want to progress in this sport, you'll have to change your mindset at some point. The typical tow at Minden takes you to the east, to the Pine Nut Range. It usually isn't necessary to go all the way to the Pine Nuts. You can find thermals in the foothills, so I released as soon as I felt a good one. My general plan is to go south today, but for now I'm making my way east toward the ridge in hopes of finding better thermals there. It may have saved me some time to head southeast instead. That's something I might try next time I fly from Minden. Here I find my first strong climb of the day, which takes me to over 12,000 feet. Now I'm feeling confident that the thermal tops are high enough to support a cross-country flight. Since it's still blue, I'm making S-turns to locate the thermals that I know should be around here somewhere. Before I leave the Pine Nuts though, I want to get one more climb, which shouldn't be a problem since I'm coming up on the highest peaks in the range. Here I climb to over 13,000 feet, and I'm off across the valley to the south toward Gimmy's Bowl, where I can see the first cumulus clouds forming. Gimmy's Bowl is named for the late Ray Gimme, who passed away recently. He had an impressive soaring career and was the U.S. national champion in multiple classes over many years. I'm happy to see these clouds ahead, but they aren't looking particularly powerful, so I'm cruising at a moderate speed and trying to stay high. At this point, I'm looking into the distance to see where the clouds are, and I'm planning my course based on that. There appears to be only one option, which is to go toward the clouds around Hawthorne and perhaps down to Boundary Peak. I arrive at the clouds and bounce around between them, trying to climb to cloud base before I cross the next blue gap toward the Hawthorne area. The climbs are a bit anemic, and I can't get much above 12,000 feet. This is a lot lower than I'm used to being in this area, and I nervously set out for Hawthorne. I still have good landing options in range, so I tell myself to cowboy up and press on. This cloud ahead looks promising, since it's bigger than the others around it. It yields a short but strong climb and makes me feel okay with pressing further south. There's a continuous line of clouds ahead, which seems like it should make for easy going, but as I try cloud after cloud, I find nothing worth stopping for. These clouds look good, but my confidence is waning after each fails to work. I take a couple of weak climbs to keep my altitude up. I briefly break 14,000, which is the altitude that I previously considered low in this area. On this flight, I've spent the entire time below 14,000. I'm at a decision point now. I still have 3,200 feet of margin over Hawthorne, but it's directly behind me. If I continue to the next group of clouds ahead, that margin will quickly erode, since I'm going away from my safe landing spot. There is nowhere to land in the desolation beneath me. I decide I've been brave enough today and start to head back north. As I get closer to Hawthorne, my margin over it improves. I take a short climb, then see that there's a line of clouds extending to the east. Going east from here would keep Hawthorne abeam of me, maintaining a comfortable margin over it. Here's a solid climb that takes me well over 14,000 for the first time. Things are looking up. I take another short climb to get to cloud base, then it's a fast run down to the end of the cloud street. I actually gain altitude as I'm cruising under this continuous line of lift. I reach the last cloud and turn back the way I came. This was a great little detour that adds a bit of distance to the flight. Conditions have improved, but I'm still flying relatively slowly and staying high. This is not a booming day by Nevada standards. However, as I return to the area where I was before, the clouds seem to have grown taller, and I briefly consider pressing further west to get to them. That would take me deeper into unlandable territory, and I prefer to be higher, so I decide to head back north toward home. In the distance, I see another glider climbing. It's over an area that I've come to recognize as a good source of strong climbs. It's a young lava field that bubbled up from a volcanic vent called Mud Springs Volcano. It kind of looks like a puddle of mud, doesn't it? All that black lava just bakes in the sun and creates some of the strongest thermals around. This volcano is just southwest of Lucky Boy Pass and east of 9 Mile. I flew past the other glider at first, then as he turned toward me I got a flame alert. I turned to join his circle and you can see him right here. Eventually we sync up in the same circle and climb a few thousand feet together. This was the strongest climb of the day, thanks to volcano power. This thermal takes me to over 17,000 feet, and now I can relax as I cross this blue gap towards Gimmy's Bowl. Even from this distance, I'm looking at the different clouds in the area ahead and trying to pick the best one. I settle on this big one to the left, even though it's a bit out of the way. Unfortunately, this cloud has already started to die, and I catch only the last updrafts of what was probably once a strong thermal. Those were the last big clouds, and now I'm crossing a blue gap to the pine nuts. Minden is almost in range, but it's only 4:20, so I'm looking for a way to extend my flight. I'm thinking I'll run north along the pine nuts. There's a few small clouds there, but before I get to them, I run into a solid thermal in the blue. That was a nice surprise. These clouds in the pine nuts are clearly dissipating, and I don't find much lift there. I poke around under a few wispies, then head north toward another set of small clouds. As I get closer to them, it becomes clear that there's a convergence line here, and I decide to follow it as long as I can keep Minden in glide. The clouds are small, but there's good lift under them. On this glide, I'm making 757 to 1, and that's thanks to the convergence. This is a relaxing phase of the flight. I have Minden in glide, so I'm home free. I can just wind down and enjoy the view. Soon I notice another glider near me, which turns out to be Echo Echo in the Stemma motor glider. We wave hello to each other as we pass. He's apparently thinking the same thing I am, and we end up flying the rest of the flight together. You can't see them in the video, but there are some tiny wisps of cloud ahead that are rapidly forming and dissipating. This tells me that the line of convergence extends out this way, although it is getting weaker. I'm making 41 to 1, flying at 95 knots. That's better than my glider could make in still air, so that's evidence that there's at least a little lift present. I'm turning back toward Minden now and beginning my final glide. This was an interesting flight, and I feel like I learned from it. Next time I'm out in that area to the south, I'll be more comfortable being low. It's still not a super familiar area to me, but I'm starting to get less stressed when flying there. The day after this, I made another flight through that area, and it ended up being a pretty special one. Be sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next video. was 442 kilometers at a blistering 87 kilometers per hour. The thermals were below average strength for this area, and I definitely flew conservatively today. Still, I think 442 kilometers is respectable, given the conditions. The following day was completely different, and I can't wait to share that flight with you. See you next time.